40 years in prison doesn't just change you, it rewires you. The system is designed to wear you down, to break you. By the time you get out, everything you knew is gone. How do people survive that and not lose themselves completely? On today's episode of the Infographics Show, we're walking through what a life sentence in prison is actually like. Day 1. You shuffle off the bus in handcuffs and leg irons, peering up at the guard towers and razor wire fencing. Armed officers herd you forward, their eyes cold. To them, you are nothing. And this is it, your home for the next 4 decades. You enter a holding room where an officer takes off your leg irons and gestures toward a thick door, the booking area. They take your wedding band and slip your phone and wallet into a Ziploc bag. $200 goes into your prisoner trust account and another $100 into your telephone account. In another room, you're told to strip. A guard smirks when they notice the tattoo of your son's name inked across your chest. Your son, just 4 years old, will grow up without a father. And your wife, who swore she would wait, will have gray hair and wrinkles the next time you hold her, if you ever hold her again. The truth is, you've already accepted she'll move on, but the very thought of that right now is unbearable. Then comes the strip search. The whole process is totally dehumanizing. You've never thought of yourself as a bad person. It was self-defense, but that didn't wash with a jury of 12 men and women. The judge called it a callous disregard for human life, a deliberate act of calculated cruelty. If you had to defend yourself again, you would. And in this prison, it'll become a reality. But fighting isn't what frightens you. It's spending the next 40 years in small claustrophobic rooms as the property of the United States government. Just another body the officers will process today. You're handed your prison-issue slip-on shoes, gray jogging pants, and a sweater bearing the initials DOC, Department of Corrections. They fingerprint you and they take your photo. You're now a number, 12515-066. One of 1.8 million Americans behind bars, one of 600,000 people sent to prison each year, and one of the 1 in 6 who will never leave, serving a life sentence. Orientation blurs past. The officers talk about violence, about reporting abuse, but all you can think about is your wife and child at home. Later, a nurse performs the health checkup. She asks about your drug history and whether you're a danger to yourself. You mutter no and you shake your head. She scribbles a note in your file and you are out the door. You're moved into another nameless, colorless room. Have you ever worked for law enforcement? A guy in a shirt and tie asks you. No, you haven't, and you've never testified against anyone, so there's no reason you can't do your time in the general population. None of this feels real. Your state-appointed lawyer had been sure you would just get a few years for manslaughter, or better, it'd be viewed as a justifiable homicide. You were one of the 80 to 90% of federal criminal defendants in the U.S. defended by the state, a nation where with enough money the odds aren't too bad for getting away with serious felonies. The thought makes you furious. Your emotions swing wildly, from rage to despair. You just saw a female and a male officer laughing and joking with each other, casual workplace flirting. You'll never share a moment like that again. And then you walk through the bowels of the prison, door after door creaking open until the faint sound of voices grows louder, the smell of floor cleaner and sweat filling your nostrils. The last door opens to your unit. Faces look up from the tables where men are slamming down dominoes and cards. You keep your head high. You don't show them any weakness. White, black, brown, all in their own tight clique. Like it or not, this is your new family. Fish! Someone shouts from behind you. It reminds you of your school, but with grown men, dangerous men. You're not interested in what any of them has done or the prison hierarchy they belong to. You don't want to be a part of their system, their code. You're not scared of them. The only thing that scares you now is time. You walk into your cell. Your cellie barely looks up, jerking his head to the top bunk. You toss your prison handbook on a steel desk, barely a foot away from a toilet sink combo that smells like it was freshly used. You still expect to wake up with your wife beside you, telling you it was all just a bad dream. Month 1. Before you were locked up, you'd watched prison TV shows. Like millions of others, you dismissed them as poverty porn, cheap exploitation of damaged lives. But you still watched. Your guilty pleasure was seeing grown men fight over a missing piece of candy. But you never thought you would be one of them. In here, you know your place, and it's decided by skin color and affiliation. Since you have no affiliation, unless you count CrossFit, Catholicism, or the Pee Wee soccer team you coached, you're lumped in with the whites. This was explained to you when a group of thugs walked into your cell a day after you'd arrived. They wanted to see your papers, your charges, checking to see if you were a chomo or some other kind of sex offender. You used to think that the prison code, when you heard about it on TV, was insane and hypocritical. But now that you're a part of it, you keep your mouth shut. The guys looked impressed when they read your homicide conviction, and here, that's a badge of honor. You don't bother telling them the details, what your useless lawyer had called mitigating circumstances. Neither do you play the tough guy. Your cellie later tells you that tough guys don't last long in prison. Just be cool and you'll be all right, he told you, but his bid is 7 years, not 40. He explained that you are constantly monitored, that cameras watch your every move, but he said this doesn't stop the violence. Someone was stabbed in the shower stalls a week or two before you arrived. He said if someone wants you dead, they can kill you and make it look self-inflicted. The kid who carried it out was a torpedo, ordered to put work in for the Mexican mafia. They run things in this unit, taking orders from the boss, the shot caller. When there are problems, this guy will mediate it with the heads of the other races. You soon learn that if someone disrespects you, you fight back, or you'll become a victim. You have seen it with your own eyes, a fight over a stare, something your cellie called mad dogging. Another guy was beaten for farting, a sign of disrespect. The unit feels like a time bomb. The fuse hasn't been lit yet. Your cellie says all-out violence is rare, it disrupts business, and business means drugs. Sometimes they're smuggled in, but more often an officer will bring them in. If you cause a fight, the unit is locked down and the cells get tossed. If drugs or weapons are confiscated, you can expect a beating. And you'd better hope the shot caller is feeling generous, because an HOS or hit on sight can easily become a KOS, kill on sight. Month 6. You're adjusting to prison life, and not just learning to poop in front of another man. You've gotten drunk on prison alcohol, brewed by your wing's Pruno guy, the hooch expert, making money from hustle. Your cellie said it's a pretty simple process. Just take a whole load of old fruit and mix it with bread and then add extra sugar for strength. Even ketchup and candies work. You've got to leave it to ferment, usually in a watertight bag that can be acquired from the kitchen. You pour a bit of extra warm water into it every day. The key is just finding a good hiding place, ideally above the roofing tiles or even inside the walls. It only takes 5 to 7 days to brew, but the longer you leave it, the stronger it is. You can get it up to about 15%, even 30%, but the norm is about 10%. It's important to burp the bag or let the pressure out, otherwise you'll have an explosion on your hands. It wasn't the best thing you've ever drunk, but at $10 a cup, it'll do. You've been so depressed that even a cheap buzz felt like relief, but that is not the only escape available inside. You name it, you can buy it here. Heroin, cocaine, Xanax, methamphetamines, spice, even LSD and ecstasy. Nothing about prison makes sense. Guys locked up for possession are doing harder drugs inside. Others who had never touched drugs get hooked here, carrying the habit back outside. And abuse doesn't come cheap. Everything here is about 5 to 10 times the cost on the outside. A corrupt, low-paid prison officer and a gang can make some serious cash. The guys often target female staff or officers, deliberately looking for ones who have low self-esteem. You once read that some women officers admitted they liked the protection inmates gave them. It made life easier. Some, said a report, were just infatuated with the gang members. Others liked buying Percocet on the street for just $5 and getting $50 in prison. And it's more common than people think. You remember reading that in Baltimore, 75% of 650 correctional officers were women, and a witness claimed 65 to 75% of them were involved in contraband, smuggling, or relationships with inmates. Just before you came into the prison, a report out of Kentucky said 30 officers had sex with inmates in only 16 months. Meanwhile, 14 others smuggled in drugs. And now you've seen it happen yourself. In prison, you'll pay around $40 for enough tobacco for a few rolled cigarettes. Weed, about $10 a gram outside of prison, is $60 inside. Meth, popular because the high lasts a long time, is about $40 a gram outside and $130 inside. Heroin, $10 a bag outside, is $70 or more here. Just a cheap prescription Suboxone pill sells for about $80. So a corrupt officer can be paid thousands for one small package. And if you want a smartphone, a phone that has possibly been plugged, you might pay $6,000. Your cellie said prisoners have used drones to fly contraband over the walls. No matter what, the business doesn't stop. If there are seizures, all it does is push the prices up, making it more lucrative for anyone involved. In other words, what you've learned is that criminals remain criminals in prison. Also, prisoners usually learn a few new tricks of the trade in what some call crime school. It's no wonder that about 3/4 of these men will be back within 5 years of their release, and you'll be here waiting. Year 1. So far, you managed to stay out of trouble. It's true what they say about prison. If you keep your head down, be polite, don't let anyone take advantage of you or breach the prison code, You might manage to finish your sentence unscathed, and so far that's true. You've not been forced to join a gang, but it is just a fact of life in here that you don't get too close to the other races. You don't eat with them, you don't spot them in the yard while they're working out, you don't borrow things from them or help them. The code demands you stay out of other people's business. Don't even ask people what they're in for. You heard a guy got a beating just for looking into someone's cell when he walked past. It's as if the code prevents real friendships from being made. If the authorities plan to divide and rule in prison, it is working. But now the friends you had outside, those guys that said they'd stick by you, they're writing less often. Your wife writes at least once a week, and she and your kid visit once every 2 weeks. It doesn't help that visits are on weekdays, and they've put you in a prison about 170 miles from your home. You always make sure that when she visits, she leaves with a smile. You've already probably spent literally hundreds of hours going through all the men you suspect have a crush on her. Besides that, your days are pretty much all the same. Breakfast at 6:30, then you work in the kitchen till 4 p.m. Your cellie says you were lucky to get a job in the kitchen, but 30 cents an hour doesn't feel very lucky. You only get yard time 3 times a week, but there is indoor recreation every day. Dinner starts at 6 p.m., lockdown is 9 p.m., and it's lights out at 10 p.m. Nothing changes except for anger management sessions. An hour twice a week with a young therapist fresh out of school. He wants you to talk about your emotions, and he loves to mention the boomerang effect. Don't express your feelings and they'll likely explode later in a fit of fury. Sometimes violence is necessary, you think? The therapist wouldn't understand. It's not something you can learn in university. Sure, you regret your crime, but only because of the consequences. Year 5. The officers all know your name. You've seen them come and go. The weak ones get exploited, and the tyrants are hated. The good ones are firm but fair. As for you, there's a kind of respect for guys who will be in here for a long time, as long as they stay out of the business and they haven't hurt women or kids. The prison does have some educational programs, but they're not available to everyone. And for most of the young gangbangers, education is viewed as a weakness. If you're smart, you find a hustle, and by your first year you had one. You are one of the few who can write and make sense of complicated legal texts. That's made you the jailhouse lawyer. It's against prison rules, but so are all the hustles. The officers usually turn a blind eye to it as long as nothing gets out of hand. But if there's a shakedown, any sign of your hustle, and you might get some time in the special housing unit, the SHU. In there, it's a 23-hour-a-day lockdown. Your exercise is in a miserable cage. You've been there only once, and you don't want to go again. All day, all you heard were screams and shouting. In prison, it feels like about half the guys are mentally ill. You read once that 15% have a serious mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. And the crazy ones often end up in the SHU, slamming their heads against the wall or harming themselves. Thankfully, they still allow you to read in the SHU, otherwise you might have gone crazy. The prison library isn't great, but it is a lifesaver. Well, it is if you're not one of the 60 to 75% of U.S. prisoners who are functionally illiterate. For lifers, if you're not constantly doing gang business, there are 3 main ways to stay sane: regular exercise, meditation, and reading. Reading is one activity that you've seen in prison that actually helps people rehabilitate themselves. The selection isn't great, way too much romance fiction. Still, they have a lot of classics and some okay nonfiction. You just go to the library during yard time and you check out the books. When you were in the SHU, they came around with a cart. Your wife sends books in too, and prisoners can order from Amazon. You can't have overtly sexual books or anything that might inspire or teach violence. And yes, there's actually a banned books list. The 2023 Prison Libraries Act was supposed to address the lack of funding, but the bigger problem is censorship. If they were really serious about rehabilitation, they should be making sure prisoners have access to a wide range of educational nonfiction and literary fiction. But instead, they ban books like it's North Korea. The worst state, your wife told you, was Florida, with over 22,000 books banned. Texas came next with around 10,000, then Kansas with 7,700, Virginia with 7,200, and New York with 5,300. And that includes language books staff can't read, and drawing books that inmates might use for tattoos. Often no reason is given, just stamped "threat to security." In some states, even books with homosexuality are banned. Part of you thinks that the system is not interested in rehabilitation as much as filling quotas and punishing people. You had a lot of time to think about the man you murdered. You've watched men in here brag about violence and killing, and it hit you hard. Maybe you are just as messed up as they are. You always thought you were different, that your case was special, but just about everyone here says that. But your crime only created more trauma, which you are now passing down to your son. Violence is like a vicious cycle. If prison has done anything good for you, it's the realization that crime is all about cause and effect, and that even in bad circumstances, a civilized man can choose to end it. Still, you know you did wrong, and it won't help you get through another 30 years. Year 10. About 3 years ago, your wife started writing less often. She canceled visits, one after the other. Your son, who's now 14, started getting into trouble, and your wife said it was your fault. Now, he barely visits you, and when he does, he looks bored and resentful. And then you got the letter. She'd met another guy. She loved you, she said. She tried, but she couldn't live the best years of her life alone. In a way, you felt some relief. Part of you wanted to respect her decision. The other part wanted his name and address. The group therapist said anger is a very natural response in these circumstances, but what does he know about spending your life in prison? You'll be sitting in the prison workshop and suddenly there will be an image in your head of your wife kissing some other guy. The pain is indescribable and there is nothing you can do to escape it. So you're in a prison but also in a cage in your head, torturing yourself daily, and no matter what you do, those bad thoughts will come. And worse, you can't talk about it to a friend. You can't show weakness in here. And then you cracked. The therapist was right about the boomerang effect. You'd mistakenly told someone about something you enjoyed, a book you were reading. God knows why you let a feeling slip out, but you did. The novel was The Count of Monte Cristo, a story about love, revenge, justice, and morality. It really resonated with you, but then you got to the all-important final pages and someone had ripped them out. That's the kind of petty thing that happens all the time in prison. But after 10 years after being dumped, you just lost it. You snapped. Someone told you it was one of the new kids. You waited until he went to the showers and you knocked him clean out with one punch. If you hadn't done anything, you'd have been seen as weak. But the truth is, you did it because you were angry. Therapy is good on paper, but it doesn't take into account the extremes of prison life. In the shoe, an officer told you someone else had torn out the pages. You'd beaten an innocent kid for nothing, putting in work for a conniving liar. Maybe the officer was lying, so you'll beat another innocent man. This is life in the prison. Constant manipulation, constant lies, people taking pleasure in suffering. It destroys your faith in humanity. You know you can't do another 30 years of this, and after that last beating, stitches, hospital trauma, you doubt the parole board will be doing you any favors. Year 20. A year later, you learned your wife's new lover was your best friend. You had lost your two best pen pals, the core of your emotional support, in one blow. And now your only visitors are your brother and your mom. But your mom is sick, and you carry the added guilt of not being able to help her. You're sure the stress of what you did made her sick. You probably would have lost your mind if it weren't for one thing. Between years 14 and 19, you wrote a novel. It was your greatest accomplishment, besides having a son who still won't talk to you. Under the First Amendment, you technically have the right to express yourself, even in prison. But then one day during a lockdown, your cell got tossed. And when you came back, your manuscript was gone. You complained loudly, and they called you into the office, and that's when they told you the truth. Your manuscript was confiscated and burned. Why? Well, the characters might resemble prison staff. They also said your book could incite violence, that it was a threat to prison security. And that was it. You finally lost your mind. But it wasn't an explosion of violence this time, it was quiet. You just withdrew into yourself. You gave up. You realized you can't win in prison. In the end, it grinds you down. When all those years ago, you thought yourself dehumanized in that first strip search, you were very wrong. Dehumanizing a person takes time. They chip away at you until your identity is nothing but a lump of stone, stripped of all character. Year 30. It's as if you've become a ghost. No one bothers you anymore. You're just the old-timer serving your time. The last time you heard anything from your wife after the divorce was finished was a letter to say she had married your best friend. Your son, according to your wife, had fallen in with the wrong crowd. In any other circumstances, this would bother you, but now you've stopped caring about what goes on in the outside world. That place is no longer real. The only reality is inside the prison walls, a nightmare you've learned to live with. You don't even know what year it is half the time. After decades, you've just stopped caring. You've seen a guy beaten to death in here. You've heard countless screams from men having a mix of sugar and boiling water thrown in their faces. You've had good cellies and bad cellies. One of the bad ones was a mouthy tough guy. He was transferred with a new scar on his face, made by a double-edged homemade razor. Physical assaults are so common that many don't even get recorded. But the truth is, you barely even notice the violence these days. It's just a fact of life, like the sound of locks or the smell of disinfectant. You no longer even daydream about nice food or the touch of a woman. You focus only on what's in front of you. It's not what you don't have that hurts you in prison. Humans can get used to almost anything. What hurts the most is the things you could have had. You no longer see ruthless gangs or heartless criminals in here, not like the TV shows want to make out. You just see victims of childhood trauma, of cruelty and rotten luck. Men who, for the most part, were doomed from birth. You don't feel sorry for them. Some have done awful things, but you don't moralize. Prison is proof there is no such thing as free will because no one would choose to end up like this. Year 40. You came in here age 25 and now you're 65, the age at which most people retire. You often look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself. And almost time to go, to leave these walls. But the strangest, most debilitating thing is you're not sure if you want to go. For decades, you barely thought about life outside. Now it hits you like a brick, and it scrambles your mind. You've seen the changes on TV, new gadgets, wars, viruses, environmental crises, and moral panics, and after a while it all became meaningless. Sure, they've given you classes on how to reintegrate, but the fact is you became your prison number a long time ago. The outside world is no place for a man who thinks he's a number. Part of you wants to stay in your cell with your books, where you at least know the layout of the land. The dark irony is that the more dehumanized and institutionalized you become in prison, the easier it gets. The parole board said you were ready. The electronic bolt snaps open, and they lead you down the corridor past the few old-timers who bother to say goodbye. But you're struck with a thought. Maybe the outside isn't where you belong. Maybe prison is your natural habitat. They hand you your civilian clothes and a small bag with your wallet and phone. There are $300 in there. You're not even sure it buys much in this new world. The phone lights up in your palm. The woman at the desk hides a smile as you prod the antique screen. The last time you stood here, you were good-looking, with full hair, a man who once thought he'd do well in life. And now you're old, with 40 years missing. But inside you still feel the same, like your life was paused while the world kept moving. The door opens, daylight hits your eyes, and you take your first steps into the future. Doing life behind bars shows just how crushing prison can be, but some inmates refuse to accept their fate. Watch how insanely creative prisoners escaped from maximum security prison to see the daring and ingenious ways they broke out. Or click on this video instead.